Harper, 22 years old, woke up in a hotel room in Banff and discovered that her entire family had vanished. No note, no phone call, only a photograph of her parents smiling beside Giselle at an upscale restaurant hundreds of miles away. The wind chimes outside the balcony tapped softly against each other. The thin, icy sound drifted through the room, making the silence even more frightening. Harper sat up, pulled the blanket away, and looked toward the bed across from hers. The sheets had been neatly smoothed. Her parents' 2 large suitcases were no longer beside the closet. Giselle's coat had also disappeared from the hanger. She walked into the bathroom. No toothbrushes. No cosmetics. No medication. They had not gone downstairs for breakfast. They had left. Harper called her mother. The phone rang 3 times before the call was declined. She called her father. No one answered. On her 4th attempt, a notification appeared on her screen saying that Giselle had just posted a new photograph. In the picture, Giselle was wearing a cream-colored fur coat and sitting between Richard and Evelyn at a restaurant in Calgary. Expensive designer shopping bags covered the table. All 3 of them were raising their glasses, their faces glowing as though the trip had always been intended for them alone. The caption beneath the photograph made Harper feel colder than the snow outside the window. The best day with the people I love most. Today, everything is all about me. Harper stared at the screen for a long time. She typed a reply. Congratulations. From now on, you can all keep each other. 10 seconds later, she deleted it. Harper knew that if she left the comment there, Giselle would cry. Her mother would become furious. Her father would call it jealousy. In the end, the person abandoned in a strange town would still become the one accused of ruining the family vacation. Her phone vibrated before Harper could put it down. A message from Evelyn appeared. Giselle saw your comment before you deleted it. She panicked and fainted. Why are you always so selfish? We had to take your sister to the hospital immediately. A minute later, Richard sent another message. Stop being dramatic. Your sister is seriously ill, so we did not have time to call. You are an adult now. Take care of yourself for a few days. Harper laughed. A dry sound escaped her throat, then died away. Evelyn was sitting in the hospital corridor, but her concern was not entirely for Giselle. In a hidden corner of her mind that she refused to acknowledge, she knew she had abandoned her own biological daughter without saying a word. Rather than confront that guilt, she made Harper the one at fault. Richard also understood that what they had done was cruel, but he had become accustomed to choosing the easiest path. Comforting Giselle was always simpler than defending Harper, because Harper had never fainted, never smashed anything, and never forced the entire family to rush to the emergency room in the middle of the night. Harper was always strong, and because of that, they believed she did not know how to hurt. Years earlier, Harper had been Richard's little princess. Every weekend he took her to the park, spread drawing paper beneath a tree, and sat for hours watching his daughter sketch imaginary houses. Everything changed when Giselle was adopted at the age of 5. Giselle was small, pale, and frequently hospitalized because of an immune deficiency disorder. Evelyn loved the little girl with an intense sense of pity. Richard began canceling his outings with Harper so he could take Giselle to medical appointments. At first, Harper blamed no one. She gave up the bedroom with the large window. She gave up birthdays. She gave up vacations. She even gave up the moments when her parents should have been proud of her. The year Harper won the school swimming championship, Giselle had a panic attack just before the awards ceremony. Her parents took Giselle home and forgot that Harper was still standing on the podium receiving her medal. The day Harper received her scholarship letter for Cornell University's Master of Architecture program, Evelyn barely glanced at it before asking Harper to lower her voice because Giselle was tired. The trip to Banff had been presented as a celebration, but in the end, Harper was still the one left behind. She did not send another message. Harper put on her thickest coat, wrapped a scarf around her neck, and walked out of the hotel. The freezing wind struck her face. Snow crunched beneath every step. At Lake Louise, families were holding hands as they skated across the ice. A father bent down to tie his daughter's skates. A mother held out her arms to catch her son as he stumbled forward. Harper stood watching them, her eyes burning, but she did not cry. For the first time, Harper understood that she had not been abandoned that morning. She had been abandoned for years, during every dinner, every birthday, and every moment that should have belonged to her. The truth no longer broke her. It set her free. Harper took out her phone, turned off family location sharing, and switched it to silent mode. Then she turned her back on the hotel and began walking along the frozen lakeshore. Behind her was a family that had always underestimated her silence. Ahead of her was the life her Cornell scholarship had opened for her. And this time, Harper would not ask anyone's permission before stepping into it. Harper did not return to the hotel to wait for her parents to remember her. That same afternoon, after being abandoned, she bought a bus ticket toward Jasper, carrying only a small suitcase, her Cornell scholarship letter, and the silence her family had once used to punish her. The bus left Banff as snow began covering the pine trees along the road. Harper sat beside the window and watched the mountains slowly disappear behind her. The phone in her pocket vibrated constantly, but she did not look at it. She already knew what the messages would say. No one would ask where she was. No one would ask whether she had enough money. They only wanted to make sure Harper was still exactly where they had left her, obediently waiting and ready to forgive them when they returned. But Harper was already gone. On her first night in Jasper, she rented a small room for $40. It had only a single bed, an old heater, and a window overlooking a snow-covered parking lot. There were no soft towels, no luxurious breakfast, no one calling her selfish because she wanted to choose the food she liked. Harper bought a bowl of hot noodles from a roadside diner and sat alone beside the window. For the first time in years, she did not have to watch Giselle's expression before speaking. She did not have to wonder whether a funny story would make her sister feel ignored. She did not have to shrink her own happiness to keep the room peaceful. Being alone should have frightened her. Instead, it felt gentler than her family. Over the next several days, Harper continued deeper into the mountains. She traveled on local bus routes, slept in inexpensive motels, and spent hours sketching bridges, rooftops, and the curves of the Rocky Mountains. Every drawing reminded her that she was more than Giselle's sister. She was a future architect. She was the person who had earned a scholarship through her own abilities. Most importantly, she had a life that did not require her parents' approval. On the fourth day, Harper's phone notified her that money had been transferred into her account. $6,000. A message from Evelyn appeared immediately afterward. Are you having fun? Stay there for a few more days. Giselle is still tired, and she does not want to see you yet. Harper stared at the number on the screen for a long time. Evelyn was sitting beside Giselle's hospital bed when she sent the message. In her mind, $6,000 was generous compensation. She did not believe she was buying her daughter's silence. She simply convinced herself that Harper liked money, liked freedom, and would certainly forget about being abandoned. Richard agreed. He said Harper had always been practical. As long as they gave her enough money, she would calm down. Neither of them understood that the money had confirmed what Harper had always feared. Their love had a price. Their guilt had a price too. And $6,000 was the amount they were willing to pay to avoid saying they were sorry. Harper did not return the money. She transferred the entire amount into a separate savings account for the cost of moving to Cornell. She did not consider it a gift. It was the smallest portion of the debt her parents had accumulated over many years. Then she turned off her phone. For an entire week, Harper traveled along the snowy roads surrounding Peyto Lake, climbed to observation points, and drew until her fingertips went numb. She did not know that back home, her silence was causing Richard and Evelyn to lose control. At first, they were angry. Evelyn messaged Harper and accused her of behaving like a child. Richard warned that if she did not call back, he would freeze her bank account. When the threats failed, their tone changed. They asked where she was. They said Giselle was crying because she felt guilty. They claimed the family only wanted to know that she was safe. 35 missed calls appeared when Harper finally turned her phone back on. She made only one call. Richard answered immediately. "What the hell are you doing? Do you have any idea how worried we have been?" Harper looked down at the deep blue lake below her. Her voice was so calm that it sent a chill through him. "I am busy exploring the world. I will come home when I am finished having fun." Then she ended the call. On the other end of the line, Richard stood frozen. For the first time, abandonment no longer made Harper chase after them. It made her walk farther away. And when someone who had once been controlled was no longer afraid of losing her family, the people who had manipulated her were the ones who began to panic. 1 month after being abandoned in Banff, Harper returned home and discovered that her childhood bedroom had been turned into a storage room for Giselle's belongings. The architectural model that had helped her earn the Cornell scholarship lay shattered across the floor, while the last family portrait she had kept since she was 5 had been torn in half. Harper stood in the doorway for a long time. Her bed was buried beneath old clothes, cosmetic boxes, and unopened shopping bags. On her desk, her sketches had been shoved into a corner, crumpled beneath Giselle's perfume bottles. Her high school swimming trophy lay tilted inside the trash can. No one had prepared to welcome her home. They had not even expected her to return. Harper bent down and picked up the pieces of the model one by one. The thin wooden beams had clearly been snapped on purpose. The curved roof section that had taken her nearly 3 weeks to complete had been crushed underfoot, and a shoe print was still visible on the white paint. Giselle appeared behind her, leaning against the door frame with her arms crossed. "I thought you did not need this room anymore." Her voice was soft, but there was no apology in her eyes. Harper did not respond. She placed the broken pieces of the model into a box, then began carrying Giselle's bags into the hallway one at a time. The smile immediately disappeared from Giselle's face. "What are you doing?" "Cleaning my room." Giselle stepped forward, grabbed one of the bags, then suddenly clutched her chest. Her breathing became rapid. Her knees buckled. Only seconds later, Evelyn came running upstairs as though she had been waiting for the signal. "You have barely come home, and you are already trying to kill your sister?" She knelt beside Giselle, pulled her into her arms, and glared at Harper with hatred. Harper had once been terrified of that look. In the past, she would have explained herself. She would have apologized. She would have picked up every item again and quietly walked out of her own room. But this time, she simply pulled an empty suitcase from beneath the bed. "I did not touch her. She cannot breathe, and you are just standing there. You should call a doctor." After saying that, Harper continued clearing the room. Her calmness stunned Evelyn. She had prepared herself for an argument, tears, or at least a plea to be believed. But Harper gave her nothing she could control. Downstairs, Richard heard the commotion but did not come up. He knew Giselle had used panic attacks before to end every confrontation. He also knew Harper's model could not have broken into so many pieces on its own. But as always, he chose silence. That evening, he brought home an expensive seafood feast to celebrate Giselle's discharge from the hospital. Lobster, snow crab, and oysters covered the dining table. When Harper passed through the kitchen carrying a cup of noodles from a convenience store, Richard forced a smile. "Sit down and eat with the family. I bought enough for you too." Harper looked at the table, then at Giselle sitting between their parents as though that place had always belonged to her. "This expensive food is for your good daughter. Ordinary food is good enough for me." She spoke very politely, without anger, without sarcasm. That emptiness disturbed Richard more than any accusation could have. He suddenly realized that Harper was no longer fighting for a place in the family. She had already left them long before her body walked out of the house. 3 days later, Harper began packing her belongings. Cornell had invited her to participate in a summer architecture project for high-achieving students. The program included housing on campus, a research stipend, and the opportunity to work directly with a design firm in New York. Her parents knew nothing about it. They still believed the scholarship was only an impressive piece of paper and that Harper would eventually need the family's money. When Harper pulled her second suitcase down the stairs, Giselle suddenly stood up. "You are not allowed to leave." Harper did not stop walking. Giselle immediately clutched her chest. The cup in her hand fell to the floor. She collapsed into a chair, gasped for breath, then squeezed her eyes shut. Evelyn screamed, "Harper, call an ambulance." Harper looked at her sister. For a moment, she saw Giselle's eyelids twitch slightly, as though she were waiting for the familiar reaction. Harper smiled. "Congratulations on getting yourself hospitalized again. This time, I will not stand in your way." She pulled her suitcase toward the door. The Uber was already waiting by the curb. Richard followed her for a few steps, but did not call his daughter's name. He simply stood there, helplessly watching Harper place her luggage into the trunk. The door closed. The car pulled away. Inside the house behind her, Giselle opened her eyes. Evelyn continued crying, and Richard understood for the first time that they no longer had the right to decide where Harper would go. They had spent years convincing her that she did not matter. But Cornell had recognized her talent. The outside world had opened its doors to her. And Harper no longer needed to return to the place that had destroyed everything she loved just to prove that she deserved to be loved. 3 weeks after Harper left that house, Giselle died in an intensive care unit. This time, it was not an exaggerated panic attack. There were no secret glances to watch everyone's reactions. There was no miraculous recovery at the exact moment Harper was forced to apologize. Giselle's body had truly stopped fighting. The call came while Harper was sitting in a design studio at Cornell, finishing the plans for a community rehabilitation center. Outside the glass window, summer rain swept sideways through the trees. Richard's name appeared on her phone screen. Harper had intended not to answer, but something inside her made her finger pause. Her father's voice was hoarse. "Giselle is gone." Harper said nothing. Richard tried to explain that Giselle had skipped several treatments, stopped taking her medication without permission, and hidden serious symptoms because she was afraid of spending too much time in the hospital. Her many false episodes of breathlessness had left the entire family unable to recognize when she was truly in danger. By the time Evelyn realized that this episode was different, it was already too late. Harper sat motionless in front of her drawings. She did not feel happy. She did not cry either. Inside her, there was only a cold emptiness reserved for the girl who had once been her sister, who had once shared toys with her, then gradually turned every trace of love in the house into a competition Harper had never wanted to enter. "I will send flowers." That was the only thing she said before ending the call. Harper did not return for the funeral. She sent a wreath of white lilies with an unsigned card, then continued working and completed her project on time. Evelyn waited for Harper to appear until the doors of the funeral home finally closed. In her mind, Giselle's death would bring her biological daughter home. She believed grief could erase everything that had happened. But Harper never came. And for the first time, Evelyn was forced to sit with the truth without anyone left to blame. Giselle was gone. Harper had left too. Richard began searching through old boxes in the basement. He found Harper's swimming medals, her drawings from elementary school, and dozens of letters of recognition that he and Evelyn had never bothered to read carefully. Inside one notebook, he found the design for a house Harper had drawn when she was 12. The house had 3 bedrooms. Her parents' room was in the center. Giselle's room was the largest. Harper's room was behind the garage, without a window. Beneath the drawing was a small sentence. "No one will hear me cry here." Richard sat down on the floor and began to sob. But regret that arrives too late cannot rewrite a child's past. 2 years later, Harper was preparing to graduate from the Master of Architecture program. She had completed several outstanding projects, won a National Design Award, and received an offer from one of the leading architecture firms in New York. Her parents sold their old house and moved into a small apartment near Cornell. Evelyn brought hot soup to Harper's dormitory. Richard sent coats, offered to buy her a car, and volunteered to pay every remaining tuition expense. Harper returned everything. She did not block their numbers. She did not argue with them either. She simply maintained a distance so polite that it felt cruel. On graduation day, rain had been falling since early morning. Harper walked out of the hall in her black graduation gown, holding the degree she had earned without taking a single dollar from her family. Evelyn and Richard stood in the rain holding a bouquet of lilies. Her mother stepped forward, her hands trembling. "I am sorry. Giselle is gone. You are all we have left. Please give us a chance to start over." Harper looked at the 2 people standing before her. Their hair had turned gray. Their faces had aged from sleeplessness and regret. But Harper's eyes no longer held the hope of the little girl who had once stood alone on a podium receiving her medal. "I learned how to support and protect myself when I was 12. Her voice was very soft. "When I needed you most, you both chose to turn away. Now that I can stand on my own, I no longer need the kind of love that only appears after every other option has disappeared." Evelyn burst into tears. Harper did not embrace her. She placed the bouquet of lilies on a nearby bench, then walked toward the taxi waiting by the road. Inside her bag was a contract appointing her as the youngest design director on a major project in New York. The girl who had once been called selfish, useless, and incapable of sacrifice now had the authority to shape the future of buildings worth millions of dollars. The car door closed. Harper watched Cornell slowly disappear behind her, then turned her eyes toward the road ahead. She was not running away from her family. She had simply stopped returning to a place that had never truly treated her as part of it. Harper's story reminds us that walking away is not always an act of cruelty. Sometimes it is the only way to survive years of neglect, favoritism, and emotional manipulation. Do you believe Harper was right to cut ties with her parents, or should she have given them one final chance after their apology? Share your honest opinion in the comments below. If this story moved you, please give the video a like, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful family drama stories about betrayal, courage, healing, and second chances.